If you're somebody who goes up and down in your emotions throughout the day, like 1 second you're just really happy and joyous, and 2 minutes later you're like, what is life? What's my purpose? I don't know who I am. I feel so insecure. And then 10 minutes later, your best friend calls. So all of a sudden you're riding high. And then 10 seconds later, you get an email. And now this feeling is heavy and deep in your body. And all throughout your day, you're constantly going through this up and down of emotions, like you're on this emotional roller coaster. And you think it's because you're a sensitive person, or because you're an empath, or you have emotional sensitivity, but there might be something happening at the scale of your nervous system that is worth looking at. And I'm going to break down for you how emotions and your nervous system are intertwined, interconnected, and they're working in tandem with each other, and what that has to do with you going up and down in your mood all day. Now, grab your tea, grab your blanket, subscribe to this podcast if you're not already subscribed, and let's get started. So if you're learning about emotions or nervous system for the first time, let me give you some vocabulary, which is that your nervous system is a set of nerves, nervous system, and it's basically this antenna that's always determining whether or not you're safe. And there's nothing in between. It's like, yes, I'm safe. And if I feel like I'm safe, then I'm going to behave, act, and think and proceed this way. And if I think I'm not safe, then I'm going to do that in this way. And there's rarely anything in between. It's always like beep, beep, beep. Am I safe emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, energetically, financially, in all the different ways that we as people crave to be safe? It's interacting with the world, the stimulus around you, and saying, yes, I'm safe, in which case I'm going to do these things. And if I'm not safe, then I'm going to do these other things. Now, when your body decides that you are in survival mode, whether it's true or not, you may have falsely decided that you're in survival mode based on your upbringing, based on your perception, based on your trauma, based on many other things. You may have decided, I am in survival, and your emotions will act accordingly. So if you're in survival, everything's like way more important. It's more magnified. It's more urgent. It's more dramatized. It's more bigger and more aggressive and more fiery than if you were just chilling, right? So that email is like, and that conversation is like, and that, the thing that somebody did is like, and everything is just more dramatized in your physical body, because it feels like, if I don't do this right here, right now, if I don't communicate this right now, if I don't, cut this off right now, if I don't do blah, blah, blah right now, then we're not going to survive. So your body essentially goes into this panic mode where it can't really understand that the situation that it's interacting in and the thing that it's experiencing isn't really that big of a deal, right? Like if you just take some deep breaths and regulate your nervous system, you're going to be able to move through this with a different perspective. But in that moment, your body cannot tell the difference. It feels like here, right now. So your emotions get impacted by the way that your nervous system is regulating. So if your nervous system is constantly dysregulated, constantly in a survival state, your moods are going to go up and down with it. Your emotions are going to go up and down with it. Now, regulating your nervous system isn't like, here's this one breathing technique that you do, or here's this one thing that you do. It's a series of actions and activities that you do throughout the rest of your life that allows you to have a regulated nervous system. So essentially what that looks like is allowing emotions to raise to the surface is step one. And for a lot of people who go up and down in emotions, you don't know how to do that, right? Because emotions are big and scary, and they're always like so dramatic and so heavy and so dramatized every time. Like joy is like so big, and you feel like joy is gonna go away, so you hold on to it, or you feel like you don't deserve it, or you feel like you're guilty when you're experiencing it. Your nervous system basically has the scarcity energy towards joy or happiness or pleasure. Or if you experience fear or doubt, self-doubt, you feel like now you have to go through this entire spiral and go through 10 weeks of depression in order to, move out of it, rather than it just being a moment in time where you just have an insecure thought or a moment of insecurity. Or when you experience, right, like fill in the blank with every single emotions, is that when your nervous system is in survival mode, it interprets everything as this like drama, this magnified, this most important thing that I'm ever going through, and everything's on this pedestal. So raising emotions into the body is new for a lot of people. And we run to the last step, which is like, how do I regulate my nervous system? But the first step of all of that process is being able to raise emotions into the body. So if you grew up in an environment where, one, you were not allowed to have emotions, or you didn't feel like you built emotional intelligence, like there was nobody to help you, identify emotions or to hold space for that, you may not have learned those skills. You may feel guilty for having emotions. You may act like you don't have any emotions, like you're a G, you don't feel anything, like you can't hurt me. But it's like, no, you can. Like you're really sad and hurt inside. You're really, craving that attention. So you may have grown up in a place where people didn't have time for your emotions, or they were in survival mode. Your caretakers, your parents, or whoever it is that you were growing up with, they didn't have time for that, or they lacked emotional safety. Many different reasons for why we don't feel safe to raise emotions into the body. And so when we start to actually raise emotions into the body, our body says, panic, panic. It doesn't like that. It's like, are you sure you want to feel the abandonment? You want to feel the trust issues. You want to feel the neglect. You want to feel the rejection. You want to feel the judgment. You want to feel all of these things. And your body's like, ew, 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 ew. Let's dissociate. We don't want to do breathing. We don't want to do, healing work, etc. It wants to get out of the situation. So that's step one. We're not even getting into being able to regulate the body. We're getting into the point where we're saying, let's actually allow these things to come up without attaching a story to that. We don't need to say, I'm angry because, or I'm frustrated because, or I'm happy because. It's just the feeling of that emotion, energy in motion. They don't want to just be suppressed and be held in space. They need space to rise. They need space to move. They need space to exist. And a lot of us, we don't want to give space for that. Because it's like, if I'm going to feel anger, then it's going to totally ruin the next 3 weeks of my life. If I'm going to feel, frustration, then I might actually break up some relationships that I know I shouldn't be in. Or if I'm going to feel blah, 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 I know something's going to shake up and your body's like, we don't want any of that. Like, don't you just want to be boring and stay with your status quo and not, enjoy the chaos that you have? Like, you don't want you don't want to create new chaos in order to have peace. Don't you just want to enjoy this chaos? It's not that bad. It creates these narratives as protection. So the second part of being able to navigate this up and down of emotions is to recognize that things are coming up, So if you're used to shutting stuff down, when they come up, you're going to feel like a little bit of confusion. You might not notice like, hey, it's actually showing up in my physical body as this like lump on my neck, or what is this constriction in my chest, or why do I feel density in my lower back? There might be certain parts of your body that starts to activate. And being able to, one, raise emotions into the body, and two, recognize emotions in the body is the marker of building emotional intelligence, okay? So the more that you think through emotions, the less emotional intelligence you're building. The more you analyze emotions and attach narratives, the less emotional intelligence you're building. The more you try to attach meaning to emotions, the less emotional intelligence that you're building. And it's kind of this like catch-22, because we crave to understand, we crave to analyze, we crave to, create meanings. That is such the human mind, but your physical body does not heal that way. So as I close out this conversation, I invite you to build your physical body's capacity to experience emotions. Whether you come to breathwork with me, whether you hit up the resources in the show notes, whether you start to acknowledge the things that you've been suppressing, it doesn't matter where you start, but allow emotions to raise, and that's going to give you the permission to build the resiliency that you want, and you're not going to experience this up and down in your feelings, in your moods, and be able to regulate yourself that way. Just remember, the world is your playground, and until next time, I will catch you soon.